They led wire to wire. Jalen Brunson had a game-high 32, while Cat played through injury to chip in 24 with 13 rebounds. Now the series heads back to Indiana, where the Knicks will have to do it all over again to force a Game 7. Knicks fans feeling good.
Knicks in 7! 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 Knicks in 7!
Stephen A., will the Pacers allow it to go to Game 7?
There's a good chance they won't. I'll say that. I'm not completely dismissing my Knicks' chances, but I don't like the odds. I've got it at 70% that the Indiana Pacers are going to win Game 6. And you know I'm praying that I'm wrong because I'm rooting for my New York Knicks. But the Pacers collectively are a better team. And I think that Tibbs has stepped it up in terms of his coaching. But we know that Rick Carlisle is not going to fade into the twilight. He'll respond. He'll have something. He'll have a monkey wrench to throw in a Tibbs game plan. And Halliburton is not going to be passive in Game 6. Siakam is not going to be passive in Game 6. You're not going to see Siakam as the only individual in the Indiana Pacers who has double-digit shot attempts. I don't see any of that happening. So if the New York Knicks have got to be ready. Do they have a chance? Yes, because they have Brunson. And Karl Anthony Towns seems to have his way against the Indiana Pacers. But I'm here to tell you, it's not going to be easy. And I think that the Pacers are going to do everything they can to make sure they don't have to come back to the Garden for a Game 7. Even though they can win a Game 7 because the New York Knicks haven't been great at the Garden this postseason, the fact remains is that would be a daunting task to have a 3-1 lead, to blow it and have it tied 3-3, and you're on the brink of letting a team come back from a 3-1 deficit to beat you in the conference finals. The Pacers know this, and I think they will be ready for Game 6, and the New York Knicks are going to need their A game in order to pull it off.
Well, Molly, the Pacers have won 4 playoff series the last 2 years. You don't do that unless you can close out a series, obviously. So they have been here before. But where they haven't been before is in the role of favorite. Now, this is a bit of a different situation for them. They've been the underdog. In fact, Rick Carlisle, it was in the last series against the Cavs, where the Cavs were heavily favored as the 1 seed. And Carlisle said, we're not going to be a favorite for any game the rest of this season. And at the time, it sounded like that was possible, but that's no longer true. They are the significant favorite to win this game. And they are now living in a world where the expectation is for them to make the finals. They haven't made the finals in 25 years. There's people are out there making plans for what they're going to do in Indianapolis. They're clearing out the arena schedule. The hotels are getting ready. ESPN, ABC is getting ready. Everything is under the expectation they're going to get this game. And maybe they will. But they haven't done this yet. And so while I think that they're totally geared to play long in a series and that they calibrate their team and they think about the back end of series, they are a little unproven in dealing with this set of pressures. And so that's what I want to see. And we're going to know right away, because the Pacers you can always tell right away, is the game being played at the Pacers' pace or is the game being played at the Knicks' pace? We're going to have a good feel. If they're comfortable in the situation, they're going to come out fast. If they're tight, we're going to see it right away.
Stephen A., I think it's 50-50. I do not know. I know I'm supposed to take a strong side. I do believe that the Indiana Pacers will come out with a lot more aggressiveness and a lot more venom. I do believe that Tyrese Halliburton will set the tempo and control that, but I think the Knicks can get back in the game. I've been to Indiana. I've sat courtside these games. The crowd is going to be incredible. They are going to be pumped up. I do think that Indiana probably, them being in a 3-and-a-hook favorite in this game gives them a slight chance to win. But at home, that's kind of like, that's close to a pick 'em now. That's close to a pick 'em. But I will pose this for you, Stephen A. If the Knicks find a way to win the game, we will have a Game 7 that will be on the 30-year anniversary of the last time the Pacers won the series in 7. I want you to think about what this moment is. I want you to think about a while ago when I said I think that Jalen Brunson has a chance to be extremely special and go down in history as one maybe the greatest Knicks ever to do it. If they could find a way to pull that off, considering the way the last Game 7 went, that they lost last year, but this one being the Eastern Conference Finals, then you do the 30-year reunion when Patrick Ewing missed that layup. And think about the way that series started off. That's when Reggie Miller made that shot. He did the whole sign. Okay, Tyrese Halliburton did the same thing. And he scored, that one bucket, made the sign, sent it to overtime, they won it. The moment that will be or could be for Jalen Brunson to cement himself in the history to get the Knicks to the NBA Finals, as much as I think that the Indiana Pacers could win Game 6, if that were to occur, the stage it would set as a basketball fan, I would ask for nothing more, because that would be an incredible opportunity.
That sounds beautiful. Touches my heart.
I was trying to get you there. I was trying to get you there.
I got to admit it, but we family. So I'm going to make a confession on this show, and put Wendy and Jay up on the screen and Molly as well, please, because I want to say this. I didn't want to say this. I didn't want to go here, but Jay, I've thought about those things, but I've tried not to think about it too much. You know what has quelled my thinking? What has diminished it to some degree? I was covering the Western Conference Finals. And let me tell you something. You see how I got the Indiana Pacers? The Knicks having a 30% chance of beating the Indiana Pacers in a Game 6. Obviously, it would elevate exponentially if they got to a Game 7. I still give the Knicks a chance to win this series. I had originally picked them to win this series in 7 games when people were talking about they were going to take Indiana out in 5. I said, I don't know what the hell y'all watching. These brothers can play. But the reason why I haven't been so gung-ho about it over the last few days, it's not just because of the New York Knicks struggles. It's because I give them zero chance, zero, of beating the Oklahoma City Thunder if they were to advance to the finals. See, weeks ago, I'm like, days ago, I'm like, hey, we got a chance. We got a chance. We got a chance. And then I watched OKC having to cover the conference finals. And I see those bodies that they throw, and I see the New York Knicks style of play and the lack of personnel, and you just see it in the way Oklahoma City defends. And that has taken some of the luster off my championship aspirations for the New York Knicks. Getting there, I'm all for it. But I would have to cover an NBA Finals where I'm a New York Knicks fan, and I literally believe from the bottom of my heart that nothing short of divine intervention would propel them. There is nothing else. That there is no basketball element, ingredient, snippet, whatever. Nothing basketball-wise that makes me believe they could beat Oklahoma City. So that's what it is. I believe they could come back and beat Indiana. Game 6 is the game, because I think they'd win in Game 7. All right, they got to get through Game 6. But I looked at Oklahoma City. I'm like, I got to look at the New York Knicks, and I got to be happy if they got to the finals, because that euphoria ends there.
Yeah. The Goliath quells your
To that point,
a bit. Tough matchup.
To that point, I actually think if you asked the Thunder, and they'd never say it publicly, but if you got them at a private moment, I think they'd rather play the Knicks. Because even though they have great top-end talent, and dealing with Brunson and Towns would be a load.
Take those 2 out.
Indiana can go up and down with them a little bit. And Indiana does, they didn't last night. They had 20 turnovers, but they take care of the ball at times better. And frankly, if you're taking the Knicks coming off a Game 7 with 2 days rest, the amount of minutes on those Knicks starters would be just enormous. So I would love to see a finals game at the Garden. I think it would be electric, amazing. But Stephen A., I have to agree with you.
I would agree, too. I would just say this. We always do count the Knicks out. I mean, maybe not you, Stephen A., but a lot of people, it seems to be the common theme. That's all I'm saying. And this has a NCAA tournament-like feel to the playoffs.
The Timberwolves were sent packing at the hands of the Thunder in 5. Despite their win in Game 3, this was not a close series, as the Thunder's average margin of victory was 18.25 points per win. That's largely due to the Thunder's outstanding defense. They locked up the Timberwolves, including Anthony Edwards. Here's Ann after getting blown out by OKC and being sent home.
It's exciting. I don't know why people would think it would hurt. I mean, it's exciting for me. I'm 23. I get to do it a whole bunch of times. I'm hurt more so for myself, for Mike. I came up short for Mike. Like I said, we tried last year. We couldn't get it. We tried again this year. We're going to try again next year. But hurting is a terrible word to use. I'm good, yeah.
All right, S.A. and Edwards looking at the glass half full there. Do you like or dislike his post-game comments?
Neither. I hate him. I hate him. I don't want to hear that from him. I think that as a talent, Ant-Man is a superstar caliber talent. He's box office without question. He has an aerial assault to his game that is unrivaled by many. The guy's near 27 point per game scorer throughout this season. He is 23. This is his second year to the NBA Conference, to the Western Conference Finals. And in the midst of his greatness on display, he sent home Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Luka Doncic, Jamal Murray. And then this year, he did it to Luka and LeBron on the same team. To go up against Oklahoma City, I want to emphasize that that is a tall task, especially when you're surrounded by cats who can't score off the dribble. Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, those guys, they can't score. Julius Randle, they're not ball handlers. And so chasing them off the three-point line and getting them to shoot off the dribble, it's a tall task for them. That's why they shot like 32% off the dribble in the series. But that doesn't excuse Ant-Man. And here's the reason why, Jay, and here's the reason why, Wendy. You know, I remember in 1988, 89, when Michael Jordan had to change his game because most of the time he had the ball at the top of the floor. And he recognized that that's the easiest way to guard you. And so as a result, he had to get his behind in the paint, get closer to the basket, move without the basketball, and also hurt you from with his mid-range game. I remember the New York Knicks in playoffs that followed. They would put a dude by the name of Anthony Mason on him. Remember that? Remember Anthony Mason?
Yeah.
Now, for those of you out there who don't know Anthony Mason, God rest his soul. He was a Lou Dort before there was a Lou Dort. This brother looked like the Black Hulk, okay? But he's 6'8" with ball handling skills, muscles coming out of everywhere, including his ears. I mean, my God, that was Anthony Mason. And Pat Riley had Anthony Mason guarding Jordan at times. What did Jordan do? He took him down, he moved without the basketball, made him move, hurt him with his mid-range game, etc., and did his damage. Ant tried none of that. If he wasn't shooting a three, he'd get to the hole occasionally, and then he'd give up the basketball. It was like he relented. It was like he just conceded that there was but so much that he could do. You don't have to be great when you're a superstar all the time, but you always have to be forceful. You have to be committed to making sure that your presence is felt. They were a -10 Minnesota when Ant-Man was on the court. They were a +11 OKC when SGA was on the court. So there's a superstar on the other end of the court that captured league MVP honors right in front of your face. There was a ceremony right in front of your face. And what is your answer to that? Nothing. And when it counted most in the last 2 games, okay, he's averaging like 17 points for crying out loud. What are you doing? 17 points on 39% shooting and 2 of 14 from 3 in games 4 and 5. Ant-Man is my favorite player. I love him and Steph Curry. Those are my 2 favorite players to watch. I marvel at his greatness. But that attitude where, I got time. Well, let me end it by saying this, fellas, Jay, Wendy, and I'll pass it off to y'all. Where's SGA going?
Nowhere.
Where he going?
Nowhere.
He ain't going away. Oklahoma City with Jalen Williams,
roster.
they ain't going away. All the assets they got, they ain't going away. So it's entirely plausible that Anthony Edwards finds himself in the same position for many, many years. And A-Rod, the new owner with Mark Lowry for the Minnesota Timberwolves, I've known A-Rod for years. For years. I walked right by him. I've seen this man lose in baseball. I've seen this man win. I've seen this man. I have never seen him, excuse my language, I have never seen him more pissed off. This dude, at that game, to watch them be down 20 in the first quarter, 30 in the first half of a closeout game, they look like they gave up. When you're a superstar, you don't allow that. You don't allow that. Floor's yours.
I would add to that essay, it's just not the superstar. It's about how you lead, and that's something that we're watching Anthony Edwards still learn how to do. I don't think he's ever had to lead people, and I think he's learning on the fly. You know, they often say sometimes the best CEOs are the ones that you have to assemble the plane after you jump off the cliff, and I think that's what we're watching in real time as it relates to Anthony Edwards. And how you lead is, I think it hurts. It most definitely hurts Anthony Edwards. But the bravado, that same thing that actually makes him successful, is the same thing that actually can be used against him if he's not aware of it. Now, I came on the show yesterday, and I talk about how I think it's time for his game to transcend. You made mention of Michael Jordan's game changing, getting down low on the block, posting people up. I think it's the next iteration of his game. But to your bigger point, right? Like, there are things that are about to happen that I want to make sure that Anthony Edwards is aware of. First and foremost, not only is SGA and JWill Williams not going nowhere, Houston's making moves. The Lakers are trying to make moves. Golden State is trying to make moves. Dallas has the first pick in the draft. You know, I got a chance to do D-Wade's fantasy camp down in Miami multiple times. It's always a fun event. You get a chance to hear D-Wade talk about that 6-year layoff from when they made the Eastern Conference Finals to the way they had to drag. Don't take that for granted. You ain't just going to be there automatically the next year just because you went there back-to-back years. So thinking about how Giannis is a free agent, Wendy says multiple times Giannis may go east. What happens if Giannis goes west? The West can get stronger, quicker, and faster like that. And they finished 6th in the Western Conference. Ain't no guarantee he's just going to be back to the Western Conference year after year. And that's the biggest thing to pay attention to.
Wendy?
Because I was at the press conference, I just want to add a little more context. He was very deferential to Mike Conley, whose career is nearing an end, and he understands that. He also promised he would work very hard this summer. But obviously those comments put him in not the greatest light. And I know you know this, Stephen A., because I know who has your phone number. But you know who agrees with you about what Ant needs to do? Mr. 23, Michael Jordan himself. And we know this because Ant said it, because he recently spent some time with Jordan, and Jordan gave him that exact advice that he needs to learn to play that way. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Jordan told Ant, this is Ant's words, that, you know, Jordan is so impressed with Ant because he's so much more athletic, that he doesn't have some of the ability. He didn't have some of the abilities. Can you imagine Michael Jordan giving somebody a compliment that they're more athletic? My God. But that just tells you what kind of player and what kind of standard that Ant has to deal with. And Jay, you know, about 10 minutes before Ant came in there and said he was okay, Chris Finch sat at that same seat, and he said exactly what you just said. He said, I think 15 teams and they're going to try to win in the West next year. I don't agree. I think it's 13. But he went so far as to say, you could have a great season next year and go 42-40 in the Western Conference. That was code for, I don't know if we can get back here. They flat out said it took a lot to get back here this year. So I think Ant does have to recognize this. It reminds me a lot of LeBron. Just like the conversation about LeBron passing in 2007 reminded me of the criticism of Ant passing in 2025. LeBron had to sit there in 2007 and look at the Spurs, wipe the floor with him and say, I can't keep playing this way. And LeBron's reaction to getting blasted out of the playoffs was important. And I think Ant's facing the same reality at about the same age.
Anthony Edwards is going to have to decide how bad he wants it. You know, there's no reason to sit up there and say, after a loss in Game 4, I don't struggle. I didn't struggle. I just made the right play when you attempted 13 shots. You understand? There's no reason for you to sit up there and say, I'm not really disappointed for myself. I'm disappointed with Mike Conley. Well, what the hell is wrong with being disappointed for both? I mean, what's wrong with you being disappointed for you? Because last time I checked, you were on the court, you played, you know, and you went home. And so for me, I'm just looking at him and I'm saying, listen, do you understand the kind of hole that you're going to be in? And then when you're in a market like Minnesota, you got to understand something. They got to win in order to have a chance to make money. I mean, the valuation of their franchise, if you're Laurie and A-Rod, you got it for $1.5 billion when the team was worth about $3 billion. So you got a deal there.